Hello, in this video, I'm going to show you how to derive this quadratic formula, which gives the solutions to this quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. A, b, and c here are constants, and the coefficient of x squared, which is a, is not equal to 0. Let's get started. Let me write down the quadratic equation again. So we have here ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So again, a is not equal to 0. So we can derive the quadratic formula by solving this by completing the square. So to do that, the first step is to move the constant term to the right-hand side of the equation. So we'll get here ax squared plus bx equal to negative c. And then now it's easy to complete the square because we want the left-hand side to be a perfect square trinomial. So that is easy to do if the coefficient of x squared is equal to 1. So we can divide both sides by a, and we'll get here x squared plus b over a x, and then equal to negative c over a. And then again, we want the left-hand side to be a perfect square trinomial. And to do that, we need to add something to both sides of this equation. And how do we find that constant? So that is very easy. We just have to divide the coefficient of x by 2. So you divide this by 2, and then you square it. Okay, whatever the result here, you square it. And that is, of course, you have here plus b over 2a. So that is half of b over a quantity squared. And we have to add that to both sides of this equation. We can now write the left-hand side as x plus b over 2a quantity squared equal to, in this case, let me write the right-hand side as b squared over 4a squared. So that is this one, it's the square of b over 2a. And then making this first fraction, negative c over a, as a fraction with denominator 4a squared, we'll get a numerator which is equal to 4ac. We use a square root property, so we take the square root of both sides. When you take the square root of both sides of an equation, don't forget the plus minus sign on one side of the equation. So you'll get here b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Plus minus the square root of that fraction. And this will give us x equal to negative b over 2a, and then plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And what is square root of 4a squared? The square root of 4a squared is actually 2 times absolute value of a. Keep in mind that square root of a squared is equal to absolute value of a. But I think in most textbooks, they don't usually write this absolute value of a, and they only replace square root of 4a squared by 2a. And the reason behind that is actually because of this plus minus sign here. So even if you change this by 2a or by negative 2a, you still get the two roots, which is plus minus this square root all over 2a. So we can write it down as combining this into a single fraction, that is negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We can actually avoid having an absolute value in deriving this quadratic formula. So instead of doing it this way, we can show the quadratic formula in the following way. Let me write it down again. Ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So a is not equal to 0. A perfect square trinomial is actually a trinomial of this form, a squared plus or minus 2ab, and then plus b squared. This is a trinomial. That is a perfect square because we can write it down as a plus or minus b quantity squared. Of course, if you have a positive middle term, then this is plus. If you have a negative middle term, so take the minus. So again, we solve this by completing the square, and we can write it down as ax squared plus bx equal to negative c. But instead of dividing both sides by a, what we're going to do is to multiply a both sides so that it's in this form. It's a square of an expression. So multiplying a both sides, you'll get here a squared x squared plus bx plus abx equal to negative ac. And then now we complete the square using this formula here. So we can write the left hand side as the square of ax, and then plus, so this is our a, so that is our a, and then we need here the 2ab, and then plus b squared. So what is our b in this case, so we have here 2, and then times our a is ax. But the second term here is abx. So to make this abx, we have to multiply by b over 2. So if you take the product of this one, you'll get abx. So it is clear from here that, of course, this is our a, and this will be our b. It's b over 2. So to get the b squared, we just have to square that one. So we need to add, in this case, b over 2 quantity squared. So we need to add that to both sides of this equation, negative ac and then plus b over 2 quantity squared. And we'll get here, so the factorization of the left-hand side will be ax plus, so this is capital A plus b. Okay, so you have here ax plus b over 2 quantity squared equal to, we can combine the right-hand side into a single fraction. So the second term is b squared over 4. So let me write down first, okay, b squared over 4, and then minus ac can be written as minus 4ac all over 4. And you take the square root of both sides. You have here ax plus b over 2. Again, don't forget the plus or plus and minus sign on one side of the equation, and you'll get here square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 4. And you'll get here ax equal to negative b all over 2 plus or minus the square root of. So here you take the square root of the numerator over the square root of the denominator, but the square root of 4 is just equal to 2. And this will give you the quadratic formula x equal to, again, negative b, combining this into a single fraction. You have here b squared minus 4ac, and then all over 2, but of course, dividing both sides by a, you'll get all over 2a, which is the quadratic formula. Now, one way to remember this formula is by singing it in the tune of the nursery rhyme, Pop Goes the Weasel. So it goes this way. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.